back with another video, and I've decided that, there's so many things going on in Jamaica that other people are reporting on, but there's something that I wanted to sort of go into a little bit more details, and it's regarding the pay increase that all the different politicians, including Andrew Holness, had benefited from, even though he did say, along with Mark Golding, that he's not going to accept the new pay increase that was scheduled. Now, let me just bring those up quickly for you, because I basically want to go through some of the stuff that they've mentioned. So let's just revisit the figures. So as you can see, Prime Minister Andrew Holness was supposed to get 9.1 million in 2021. You can see it there. I did go over this already, but there's a reason why I'm going over this information a little bit more detailed, because what I've decided to do is do a comparison between Andrew Holness as Prime Minister's pay in regards to other Caribbean islands and countries that we have a close relationship with. So just bear with these videos. You're going to see a lot of figures and charts and stuff in this video, but I'll break it down. I'll go through it with you, so don't worry about it. So as you can see, 2021, 9.1 million is currently what Andrew Holness is getting right now. In 2022, it was scheduled, we're supposed to go up to 22.3 million, but apparently he's still on 9.1 million. Now that's 2022, mind you. Now in 2023, it bumped up again to 25.2 million. And this is Jamaican dollars for those who are watching and thinking, what? Yeah, we're talking about Jamaican dollars, okay? Even though a lot of the calculations we're going to do is going to be in US dollars, and I'll explain why. So for now, 25.2 million is what he's supposed to get in 2023. Then last April, he's supposed to, it was scheduled to go up again to another, 28.5 million. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, every year there's, every 1st of April, you see it there, 1st of April, 2021, it doesn't say, it just say existing, but it's a tax year. So it would have been the 1st of April, this would have initiated, then the 1st of April, 2022, 1st of April, 2023, 1st of April, 2024. But now in 2024, what we don't know is last year in 2023, when he was supposed to move from 22.3 million to 25.2 million, and everybody had this whole upheaval about it. He basically said, oh, I'm not gonna accept this money. He's gonna stick with the 9.1 million in 2021. And I'm like, so what? You forgot? So what about the 20? You skip over 22.3 million back in 2022. Were you getting this money back then in 2022? And then when, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure. There's something ambiguous about this figure, even though he's claimed that he's on this. But my thing is, why are you saying you don't want to take this? In 2023, you claimed that you wasn't going to accept 25.2 million. You're going to remain on the existing 9.1 million. What the public doesn't know is if you secretly was getting 22.3 million back in 2022. But anyway, we're going to go with it and say you're on 9.1 million. But here's the thing. 2024 is with the year we're in now. Today is the 1st of, today is the 1st of May. So at the 1st of May, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, did you, get this money silently? Now you're getting this money and we're not aware of it, So inquiring mind wants to know if, he's secretly getting this money or he's still holding his word to this back in 2021. So that's something that we need to know and get clarification on. Now, I'm going to jump into some charts and some spreadsheets, and the figures are going to get more. But, I'm going to try and keep it, for those who love figures, they're going to have a field day with it. But for those who are not so much into numbers, maybe this video is not for you. But as I say, I'll break it down and take my time with it. It's not going to be a long video, I promise you. I'm just make this video as short as possible. But bear these figures in mind: 9.1 million, 22.3 million, 25.2 28.2 million and 28.5 million. A matter of fact, I'm going to copy these numbers down, okay? And then I'll stick it in a chart so that it's easy for us to reference it later on. So we don't have to remember. I think I'll do that, yeah. Now, the other thing is, we're not really concerned about all these other people down here that you've seen that, they're obviously getting some nice money. I mean, the Speaker of the House, obviously, Juliet Holness, is, I'm not sure if she's on 6.8 million and followed her husband, or she's on 22.8 million, which is roughly about the amount, which is more than the amount Andrew's supposed to get in 2022. If we were to go by anything, she didn't make a pledge and say she's not going to accept her pay increase. So as far as we know, as of April 1st, 2024, she's actually on 22.8 million, which is outrageous for a speaker. I mean, if the Prime Minister was supposed to get that in 2022, she's getting that in 2024. This is crazy. But hey, it is what it is. Or is she on 20.2 million or 17.8 million? Or is she like her husband that's on 9.1 million? Is she on 6.8 million? But the concern is not so much about the Speaker of the House. It's more to do with the Prime Minister. But all of these people's monies, the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, all these people, Mr. Compensation Restructuring, all these people's, salary does impact on the system. Yesterday, tell teachers was something else. But let me just jump into some other figures. So, as I said, a lot of people don't like the figures and all this type of stuff. But just bear with me. I'm gonna go through some stuff. We need to examine some situation. Let's go on this discovery together. So let's just jump into this chart and have up here. So, okay. So let me just bring up that chart for you. So there we are. That's the chart. So now over here on this chart, I could have made this much bigger, but I don't want to make it stretch on the screen and distort the numbers. So it is what it is. So as you can see here, I've actually have situations where I divided the different countries by a block. It's not a lot by country, the prime ministers or presidents, their salary in the UK. Well, basically everything is going to be in US dollars. This is why I put it in yellow, because when you compare figures across different countries, the US dollar is the standard in terms of international exchange rate. So because it's used as standards at the moment, you have a situation where even though when we speak of Andrew Holness, which is him down here, when we speak of him getting 9.1 million, which was retained in 2021, I put a note to it there, we need to work with US dollars. So if you notice, I've converted the amount that I need to work with in US dollars. So this is why it says salary in US dollars, and everything else is US dollars, like GDP per capita, for and also ratio in that regard. So these figures in yellow is the figures that we're concerned about. Of course, it's in UK for people in the UK who wants to know what's the equivalent of 9.1 million, and obviously those in the US who wants to know what's the equivalent of 9.1 million. So that's that. So as you can see here, okay, let me clear my throat. It's not a very long list, I promise you. So what I've done is I've sort of divided up into the Western Bloc, which is basically the UK, Canada, and the USA, and then obviously I have the Asian Bloc, which is China, Singapore, and Singapore. I didn't put anybody else. Okay, then you have Jamaica, obviously, and the reason why I put him twice is because in one situation here he retained the amount that he claimed he's still on, but as of April 1st he's supposed to be getting this amount, 28.5 million. So that's why I put that in there. And then obviously the Governor General, which is Patrick Allen, he's on 11, just call it 11 million. Okay, so there is that situation, and these are just the equivalent in US dollars and UK pounds. All right, and as you see, then what I did is, and I color coded it as well, so it's easy. So the allied countries or friendly countries that basically Jamaica have a close relationship with is the UK, Canada, and America. Okay, Asian Bloc, which is those countries. There's a reason why I put them in there. Jamaica, obviously, and then you have, the country that we dare not name, that's part of the Caribbean. But then there's all these other Caribbean islands within the Caribbean, and we do a comparison. Then obviously we have this southern part of, not so the Caribbean, but it's South America, but it's on the outer belts of the Caribbean if you look at it in terms of a circumference. So that's that situation. And what I mean by that is, if you look over on the map, which I've just brought up here, you'll see that, when I say the Caribbean, I'm encompassing sort of this area. So obviously, if you look on the map, I've included like Venezuela and all these other South American countries, Panama, Costa Rica, and so on, and moved over. And then obviously I swipe up, covering, Jamaica, our closest neighbor up there, Dominican Republic, and then I swoop back down this way and pick some of the islands from here. So it's sort of this type of circumference I'm talking about, where it's not necessarily Caribbean, but if you look at it like a sort of an oval shape, the northern part of South America, if you like, sort of sweeps on the outskirts of what we'll class as the Caribbean or the West Indies. So that's why I did that. So jumping back over here now, you can see why, I've included all these different countries in SA as in South America, which is what I've done. And just another thing I wanted to say, apart from me including all these South American that I've just showed you on the Google Maps, is down here I've decided to copy those figures. Remember I mentioned the figures that I'll copy down Andrew Holness' salary. He's retaining this at, this is decided that he's retaining in terms of US dollars, and these are the ones he's supposed to go on successively 2022, 2023, and 2024. Now this is in US dollars, not Jamaican dollars, and the reason for that is, as I mentioned, when you're dealing with international trade and measuring GDP and all these different types of stuff, it's normally quoted in US dollars. So even though if you look here at Andrew Holness, you'll see that he's on the 9.1 that he's retained in 2021. He's on that 9.1 million, but equivalent to that is 58, just over 58,000 pounds, and so on. And obviously the equivalent in the UK amount is 46, over 46,000 pounds as opposed to dollars, sorry. So I did say pounds for this. I mean 58, over 58,000 and over 46,000 pounds, okay, which is basically 9.6 Jamaican dollars. Now down here, this is the figure he's supposed to be on as of 2024, but he's not on it for whatever reason. He's claiming that he's still on this. We have to take his word for it. We don't have any proof. The Governor General, again, he's on 11 million, so that's him there, 70, just over $70,000 or just over 56,000 pounds. Now what you realize here is I've got here, which is the GDP in terms of USD per capita, which means given the population of a country, this is the amount that each person contributes to the GDP. So if you have a GDP of 4.2 trillion, which is the UK, then what this is saying is, when you know the population of the UK, I don't know off the top of my head, you can go on something like Wikipedia and type in UK and look at the current population. And then what you can do is you say, okay, if the GDP is 58,880, you multiply that by the amount of what the population is, and you'll get the GDP totally for that country. So when they say per capita, that's what they mean, purchasing power. So this is not per person salary. This is per GDP for, so if the GDP is 4.02 rather, this is the amount it works out that each person is contributing to the GDP of the UK, based on how many people is in that country. So it varies. So I did it for, Canada. I did it for US, China, Singapore. And the reason why I'll do it is because I wanted to show you that this country here if you look at the amount of money that they're getting in their salary, Andrew Holness is getting 58,679 US dollars. We're not going to talk about this. That's the exact figure. But I just showed you the document just now. But this is what we're going to work with, the US equivalent. Because when you're talking about world markets, they don't care about this. They care about this. So this is what we're working with. So if you look at this and do a comparison, you can see some countries like Singapore, the president and the prime minister, Lee Hsien Loong, he's on, which you're going to compare to Andrew Holness as the prime minister. He's on 1.2 million pounds, which is equivalent of 1.6 million US dollars. So 1.6 million US dollars compared to this. But then you have to bear in mind that the sort of GDP for that country is 794.1 billion. Okay, so okay, it's still high, but they're pushing out. They're closing. They're nearing the trillion mark, basically, very near. So when you look at Andrew Holness down there on 58,000, you might thinking, well, that's not a lot of money. But then 37.2 billion. A tiny country, not many population. Coming up to about, let's say 3 million. You can understand. So each person in Jamaica contributes about 12,994 towards the GDP of Jamaica. So 12,994 times 3 million or 2.9 something million will give you the actual total GDP of 37.2 billion. Okay, so that's how that is. And then what I've done is I've decided to work out the ratio over here. So in other words, the ratio between the amount of money that they're taking for their salary as opposed to what each person is contributing to the GDP per capita. So this is a better comparison rather than using this amount. We use the purchasing power amount. So this is a very high ratio in terms of how much. So this is where the greediness comes in, where you're thinking, oh my goodness, it does not look like a lot of money really, but it is when you realize that your GDP is only this, per capita is only 12,994 for a small population of people, 451.6% ratio. That's too high. That's crazy. And remember, this is just him. Imagine if we put all the other members of parliament for a country who have a small, in terms of their overall GDP. Please apologize if you hear dog barking outside. Nothing I can do about that. I do have filtering set up on my mic, so chances are you might not hear it anyway, but just in case you do, my apologies in advance, okay? Now, if you look at a country like, as I said, from Singapore, they're contributing a GDP of per person of, per capita of, for the purchasing power of 133,737. So that's not too bad. If you notice the amount of money, if you look at the ratio here, it's 1,203%, but that's close to, they're closing to a trillion rather. You know what I mean? But then when you look at countries like China, okay, where the Prime Minister of China, Xi Jinping, he doesn't take, his salary is really, if you want to know in Jamaican dollars, is 3.4 million, which is just over half the amount that Andrew Holness have. Because Andrew's on 9.1, he's on 3.4, and this is China. Look at China's GDP, 35.2 trillion, brother. And this is US dollars, remember? Trillion. That's crazy. So 35.2 trillion, each person is contributing 25,000, just over 25,000, per capita. But look at the ratio. Now that's a very good ratio. Unlike what we have down here, 451. You know what I mean? So when you're comparing Jamaica, some of the country that's actually producing a moving weight, and remember China's population, I'm not sure what it is, I didn't look it up, is some people say it's 1 billion or close to 1 billion or just over 1 billion, their population. Brother, that's a good ratio. and their economy. And for people who are saying, oh, blah, 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 we're going to get back to that in a second. So if you look at, put us over here, Joe Biden, for the United States, he's on the equivalent of, in Jamaican dollars, 62.5 million. Now that's 400,000 US dollars, obviously, which is what we're working with. But then his GDP is 28.7 trillion. And then per capita is 85,375. Okay, it's a bit high, but it's on par with Andrew. Andrew is here. See? That's Andrew Holness here. 451.6% ratio, as opposed to big United States ratio of 468.5. But then again, you have to realize that they're pulling in, or should I say, they're pulling in 28.7 trillion, brother. I'm going to show you what 28.7 trillion look like. Because people need to, and this is how you realize how really greedy these government people are, especially the prime minister. And when them tell you, when the economy is doing well and blah, blah, blah. Well, compared to tiny, small islands with very small population, not much for export, you look good. There's a saying that, there's this saying that goes, would you rather be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond? And I've always said the person who wants to be, a lot of people love to be a big fish in a small pond. That means you're going to stagnate. You can't grow no more. A big fish in a small pond, there's no wiggle room for you. I'd rather be a small fish in a big pond or a big ocean. I can grow and I can explore. And that's the problem. We're too small-minded, comparing ourselves with other Caribbean islands and saying we're doing pretty well. But when you look at us as Jamaica on the international stage, you can say whether it's a fair in comparison or unfair comparison. It doesn't matter. The facts are the facts. When compared to the world stage, Jamaica is insignificant in terms of GDP. So, not just Jamaica, there's other countries too, but I'm concerned about Jamaica. My heritage is Jamaica, so that's where I'm dealing with. So then we go up here to Rishi Sunak, which is the current UK Prime Minister. He's on, 209,000, just over 209,000 US dollars, which is the equivalent of 167,000 pounds. So in Jamaican dollars, that's 32,768, blah, blah, blah. So that's what that is. So we look at all of this and we're thinking, okay, but then their GDP is 4.2 trillion. You know what I mean? 4.2 trillion. So that's not bad. So given the population of Britain, I don't know, but the per capita is 58,880, and lastly, Canada, Justin Trudeau, he's got his one there as well. I'm not sure if I pronounced his name correctly. So I'm not going to dwell anymore on this. I just wanted to show you these figures just to show you. Now, when you compare down here to other countries, now this country here is on down here. So that's Jamaica. So down here, color coded it so I know the different regions I'm in. So in the West Indies now, because obviously we were in the West, which is them. Then we were in Asia, which is them, Jamaica. I single them out, even though they're in the West Indies, but I single them out because of the context of what I'm discussing. Then, in the West Indies, all the other Caribbean, not all of them, that the main ones that I've covered. And so you can see that, I just have to come closer to the mic. So as you can see, the country here that, because of the algorithm, I can't call the name. I don't know why, but it's just crazy. But you can see them there, big and bold. They don't take a salary. Okay? They don't take a salary because of the way their constitution is based and because of the way their political system is set up. We all know what that is. So they don't take a salary. Okay? But if you look over here, there's been a GDP forecast for 2024 of 108 billion, but back in 2022 it was recorded at 107.3 billion. So their forecast for 2024 is 7,600 per capita. I don't know why I keep hiccuping, excuse me. Then if you look at the recorded in 2022, it was 7,450. So this is why the ratio is 0, because there's no income here to compare, which would be this figure here. These two figures here is what we'll be working with. So they're not there, so therefore that's whatever. But it just gives you another idea that for a country with all the different, sanctions and embargo that's against this particular West Indian island, yes, still their GDP is, I would say almost 4 times, just say 3.5 times Jamaica's. You understand me? But they're a bigger island, so I get it. But then you have other countries, other islands like Dominican Republic, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, the Bahamas, Puerto Rico. Now, I must say Puerto Rico, from far as I know, is part of the United States territory. So their GDP looks really good, 132 billion. But that's because they're part of the U.S. territory, so they might be getting some, helping hand there. But, if you look at Puerto Rico, the governor general there is getting 70,000 US dollars. That's the equivalent in Jamaican dollars. That's the equivalent in UK pounds. And so their GDP is 132. So that's another good ratio. That's not a bad ratio compared to Jamaica, which is, what was Jamaica's one up here? So 451. And in tiny little Puerto Rico, you understand me, with the help of America, Big Brother on their side, they managed to keep their ratio down to, where is Puerto Rico? I've lost my train of thought. No Puerto Rico? Oh, I'm into South America. So there we are, Puerto Rico, 167. Now, I put Joe Biden in, which is why it jumps up so high. But remember, Joe Biden is on a 400,000 a year salary, as opposed to 70,000 by the governor of Puerto Rico. So I did put a note here saying salary may not reflect from Puerto Rico. So in other words, even though I put it in just to do a comparison, I don't think all of it or some of it is coming from here. The mainland United States is probably what's paying him. So that's why that is. But you can see when a government greedy and take money, when the GDP in this case is far bigger than Jamaica, but just because he's taking this amount of salary for a GDP of look how this jump up to almost 1,000% better. Do you understand me? But you see, when you take a modest salary, given the GDP, so we have to do things in context, within the realm of what you can manage, what the country can manage. If you have a prime minister or a president that's taking too much of a huge salary, it has a big effect on the GDP and the economy. So when they turn on and they say to people, we don't increase the salary of, let me just jump up to him since I talk about Andrew Holness. See, Jamaica. So when you hear him say things like, we don't want to increase the salary of teachers and nurses and all these people because it's going to, it's going to affect inflation and this, that, and the third. Well, of course, you know what I mean? We understand that. But then when you award yourself this kind of money, then that's what comes along. And I think a lot of people see the big amount of money in the public purse, millions and billions, and they're thinking, oh, we can just help ourselves and just award ourselves whatever we want without looking at the bigger picture, because they know they're only going to be in office for a particular amount of time, whether they get 2 terms, 3 terms, whatever. But they know at some point, the well is going to run dry and they're going to have to exit. And when they do, they want to exit a big fat cat. So this is what it is. This is why I don't support politicians, I don't support political parties. But as you can see there, Trinidad, Barbados, their figures are there, 5.4 billion. They're not doing as much as Jamaica in terms of GDP. But then if you look at the amount they're paying themselves, it's way too high. And this is why the ratio is 619, which is higher than Jamaica's at 451. Because, as I've explained to you, when these governments take out these huge pay salaries, they're servants of the people, and they think they're in office to just grab some big money. I'm not saying that's what Barbados or Trinidad or what these countries are doing. I'm just using the figures to say this is what happens when there's an increased amount of salary, whether it's coming from the prime minister, the president, a group of civil servant workers, or other people, minimum wage, all sorts of stuff, teachers, firemen, nurses, etc. I understand, but when you have too much, this is the ratio that happens, and you can see how this jumps massively just because of that. So if I go here, for instance, and I change this figure to, I don't know, let's change him to say his GDP is 5, so it's not very much. Let's say we put him on, I don't know, let's say we put him on 35,000 US. Yeah, Barbados, 35,000. That's what I'm going to give you. Yeah, look at the figure here, 619. Yeah, let's keep your eye on that figure. See, 35,000 US in PMO. You see how it comes down? You see how the ratio comes down? Because this stays the same, you know, it doesn't really matter. This is to do with the population. Remember, I told you this is based on this. So if the population of Barbados is whatever the amount of millions is, if each person per capita generates this in GDP, so all you have to do is multiply this number by the population to get the total GDP for that country. Okay, so I'm trying to be as explaining this as much as I can. This is probably going to be one of those boring videos not many people want to see. I'm sure a few people within Jamaica in certain, should I say, echelons or parts of the system will watch this video, but I think this is a video for everybody to watch. Take it in doses and take your time. So that's that figure. So if me undo this to bring it back to what it was, which is 116, you see it jump back up. So that's what I'm saying. So let me just save me document, because I don't want to mess about with that. Okay, so you know, Barbados, you know, Mia Motley, very famous. She's get to 106. Oh boy, let me. Wow, I almost choked just now. So Mia Motley is getting 106,000, just over 106,000, you know, US dollars. Now, even the amount which is in Jamaican dollars, which is this, if you look at what we looked at before, you know, the Prime Minister was on, you know, was scheduled to get higher than this 3 consecutive times in 2022, 2023, and in 2024 of April gone. He's supposed to have gotten in the 20 million. You know, but then the GDP for her is 5.2 billion, which is small compared to what Jamaica is pushing out, 37.2 billion. So you can see that's a very low figure. You're looking at 246, you know, about almost 6 times, you know, Jamaicans have almost 6 times the amount that they have in there. So, you know what I mean? And then you have other countries, and I'm doing the comparison just to show you that when you look at, when you compare Jamaica, which is up here, with all these other Caribbean islands, Jamaica looks good, except for Dominican Republic. Now, he's on 120. But even though he's on 120, you know, his GDP is 294.5 billion, okay? Which means he's on 440 ratio, but that's still smaller than Andrew's 451 ratio for only doing 37.2 billion. And then we have down here another island. Where was it? Was it Dominica? Yeah, Dominica on 294 billion. You know what I mean? 0.5 billion. And, you know, their ratio is 440. He's on 120. He can kind of squeeze and get away with that, which is about 18 million, 18.7 million in Jamaican dollars. But, you know, 95.5, you know, thousand in terms of UK pounds. But it is what it is. That's, in my opinion, that's still a bit high. But, hey, you know, I'm not going to knock him. You know, the country is doing relatively good, you know, given the size and the population of the country and all these type of stuff you have to take into, you know, into consideration. Finally, there's some figures here. I'm not going to go into this, but, you know, this is Guyana, as I showed you on the map. I just sweep the other parts of the northern part of South America kind of thing, because they're close neighbors as well, close distance in terms of travel. Guyana, one of our friendly neighbors, you know, the salary of the prime minister there is, which is Mark Phillips, is 90. I didn't call all the prime minister's name, but their names were there when I was speaking, so you could have read it. You know, 98,300 for 48, you know, 0.5 billion GDP. That's not too bad. It's a bit on the high side, but it all depends. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not gonna knock it. A ratio of 160, but then these are islands. You have to remember these are islands. Okay, sorry, not this. The ones above in dark green are islands. These here in this blue kind of color, these are South America. So there's potential for more growth. Depends on government. Depends on infrastructure investment. There's a lot of things that comes to mind. Venezuela, they're there. The president, he's on 48,816, which is less than what Andrew is on. Where's Andrew? Andrew's on 58 right now. This is the current figure at 9.6 million. Remember that, which is 58,679. And then you come down here and you see, excuse me, where do we just look at? Venezuela, okay? The Prime Minister of Venezuela is on 48,816, but his GDP is 211.9 billion, brother. You understand me? Okay, the ratio is high, but you know what? Him could have, if he wanted to take more, but maybe look at the ratio and say, boy, that kind of high now when I want to do that. Because you've seen some Asian countries up here that's, they're on 794 billion. But then this Singapore president and prime minister, their ratio is over 1,000%. But you know what I mean? So they're taking basically in US dollars 1.4 million and 1.6 million respectively, which in Jamaican dollars, that's a crazy amount. 222 million and 251 million Jamaican dollars over. So 225.3 million and 251.5 million. But as I say, the GDP is good, because sometimes they could argue, but listen, the country is doing relatively good. You have to realize, Singapore, okay, let's not get it twisted. Singapore is smaller than Jamaica. Let me repeat that. Singapore is a smaller island. Singapore is an island, in Asia. Just like how you have Jamaica in the Caribbean or the West Indies, you have Singapore in Asia, okay? You got the Philippine Islands. We've got thousands of islands that make up the Philippines. I didn't put them here. But Singapore, and the reason I put Singapore is because China has a relationship with Jamaica. They've been for years. There's a Chinese, diaspora, if you like, that's been living in Jamaica. Descendants, if you like, that's been living in Jamaica for years and years and years. They have their own history of indentured workers and so on. So that's why China is up there, even though they're on 35.2 trillion GDP. But I'm putting people who kind of relevant or have some relationship with us or close or neighborly to us. The reason why I put Singapore is that Singapore, I remember someone told me, one of the old heads told me that some delegates from Singapore once came to Jamaica to consult Jamaica because Jamaica's economy was booming way back in the day. I think just after so-called independence, when we had that fake independence that we celebrate, Jamaica's economy was booming, and it was one of the fastest growing economy way back then. And the Singaporeans, who were poverty poor and struggling, tiny island over in Asia, they came over to Jamaica to study and see how we managed to turn our economy around. And they took the blueprint, went back to Singapore, okay? And the effects of that is this: 794.1 billion, whilst Jamaica is still here on 37.2 billion. Now, come on, brother. And I know this is going to go over $1 trillion. You understand me? It's another, 210 or whatever billion before them hit the 3 million mark, the trillion mark. While Jamaica is still here, and chances are we're going to be sliding back with this figure rather than going forwards. But it is what it is. People like to forecast that they're going to do better, but the reality normally turns out that they do worse, not better. But hey, you can forecast anything and make it look pretty until the reality sets in. So this is why I put these countries here, because they have some type of relationship or within the vicinity of Jamaica, or something to do in Jamaica in that respect. Of course, they're over in Europe, but Jamaica have a relationship with the UK. Jamaica have a relationship with Canada and the USA. A lot of people immigrated there Chinese community is strong in Jamaica. Singapore have always, come to Jamaica to consult Jamaica on how to turn their economy around. And my goodness, 794 billion.1. I can't stop talking about it compared to us stuck on some 37.2. And there, and before you say, oh, but Singapore is smaller than Jamaica. Singapore is an island, it's smaller than Jamaica. I know I'm going like a scratch CD, but I have to rivet it in because people need to realize, say, boy, we need to do better. Okay? We have another country over here, so which I dare not named. Look at them. Them have all kind of trade embargo, all kind of, sanction and stuff on them. But look on for them situation. You understand me? Look on for them situation, 107.3 billion GDP. So we need to call a spade and realize that that's why I say them politicians, brother. Them, when you see Nigel Clark set up them about compensation, restructuring, but at the same time teachers can't get paid. We understand why. Them don't want to pay these people the money because them want to take it for themselves because they don't pay the teachers and pay the all the other staff. There's not much no left for them to get. So what them do, them say, starve everybody else. You know, when somebody doing something, them say, more for me, you don't want it. Something off a split. There's something off a split 4 ways and one person or 2 people for whatever reason not part of it, then it's more for the rest who live back in it. And that's what's going on in Jamaica. From what I can look at, it seems that way to me. That's how it appears. No, that might not be true, but that's my opinion. That's how it appears to me. I'm not going to go into the other countries. All the others are there, as you can see. Costa Rica, 26.8 per person, 141 0.5 billion. So, you know what I mean? And some of these countries in South America, they're not all that big and, they don't have the same type of sort of helping hand, if you like, and relationship that Jamaica have with the UK, with Canada, and with America. Then you have Mexico down here, on 3.4 trillion. Yes, still, their government is only taking home 67,000. You know what I mean? The president is only taking home 67,903, which is just over 10.6 million Jamaican dollars. While we have our prime minister, which don't even hit the trillion mark. We are far from it. Yeah. And remember now, Mexico is a bigger country, so we understand. So them are turning, but yes, them modest enough. You say, we're gonna take a 60. But yes, we have for prime minister all the way up here, so 0.9 million, in the 9.1 million, and only 37.2 billion GDP, But then look for Mexico down here, so 3.4 trillion, and they might take literally just £1 million, if you want to call it that, less than more than the Jamaican prime minister. And remember, the money is scheduled for go up because these are the figures down here, so see, the schedule for go up to 142 million 142,000 American dollars. I'm getting tongue twisted. Excuse me. In 2022, 2023 is supposed to be 161,000, and this year, April gone, supposed to be 182,000. Imagine if them did follow through with that, and the Jamaican government never call a ruckus. That's what we would have had. So when you look upon that in terms of what Mexico is getting, 67,000, brother, it's you know what I mean? And that's the difference when politicians is in it for the country or they in it to line them one pocket, brother. The figures don't lie. The figures is here. You can go and check the figures. You can go on Megatrends, Statista. You can go on Wikipedia. And one of the favorites that I like going to the IMF website because you can't put fake stuff on IMF website. Because if the government give the IMF wrong information and the IMF will lend them money based on them GDP and them this, that, and the third, then that's fraud. Anybody who work in finance will understand that. No, we're going to jump in at some quick chart. We're not going to spend long on this. So over here, so as you can see, we have the ratio, because I wanted to show the ratio for basically for the sort of the Western countries, if you like. Because remember over here, so my class them as the West, innit? And then we have Jamaica, yes, and then we have the West. So when we do over here, so I say, okay, I'm going to compare the UK, USA, Canada, and Jamaica. And as you can see, that in terms of ratio, which we did, I plugged the figures in. So you can see that this here in blue is the UK, yeah. This here in sort of turquoise color, whatever you want to call it, is Canada. This purple is the USA, and the green is Jamaica. Yeah, JLP party in a power right now, so that's why I put green. If I did PNP in a power, I would have turned this in orange. Yeah, so why I put purple, that's not the Democrats' color and etc. etc. But we just do some random colors to make it look a bit nice on the screen, you know what I mean? We just try to pretty up the thing. But at the same time, I say, let me put that in a green, because Jamaica's national color is green as well anyway. So there you go. So as you can see, in terms of Jamaica, Roshi Sina, this is in US dollars, by the way. Is this US dollars? I think it's US dollars. Let me just jump over and confirm. I think it's US. Yeah, it's dollars, so it has to be US dollars. Let me just jump over and just double check. One second. Roshi Sina, US dollars. 209,698. What may have 209,698. Yes, so that's correct. I just want to confirm that this is all in US dollars. So these are in US dollars. This is in US dollars, and this is the ratio. So a lot of people might look at this and say, "I don't understand this a bar chart." Yeah, I'm gonna break it down for you. So this line is the ratio. Remember, we were looking at the ratios over here in regards to their income. So basically, what I've done is I've taken this figure and this figure to get this figure, and then what I did is the per capita, because you can't use this, you have to use the per capita. If you use this figure, you're gonna get one crazy number, and it doesn't reflect accurately. You have to do it per capita for each person purchasing power. Okay, so I take the current government salary, I take the per capita GDP, and I work out the ratio from that in regards to how much income they're making. And then I use, rather than just have these figures here in yellow, let me then pick and choose them I want and represent it in a chart. So that's what those figures reflect. It's the same thing, but in graphical bar chart level thing. So then here now is the GDP per capita. So remember I told you the per capita over here is this, okay? That the figure there where I see, so per capita I go across. And then obviously salary for each of the countries named, for each of the prime minister or presidents. See that's all. Joe Biden I get 400,000. Justin Trudeau, if I pronounce his name right, or Trudeau, I think it's Trudeau. Never call him Trudeau. Apologies if it's wrong. The prime minister there, he's on 292,803 US dollars. And of course, the UK Prime Minister in US dollars is on 209,698. And the Jamaican Prime Minister over here, yeah, is on 58,697 US dollars, which is equivalent to, if we go back to Jamaica, this 58,679 is equivalent to the 9.16 blah, blah, blah in Jamaican dollars. But as I say, when you're comparing stuff on the world stage, the standard is US dollars, so that's why we have to use that. So okay, so the 58.67 whatever for Andrew Holness in the so. So what this is showing you is that when you look at the ratio, okay, for all these four countries, yeah, for a country so tiny, them really upon the heels are these bigger countries. As a matter of fact, them ratio even larger than the UK. Now, granted, the UK is also an island, but it's massive, much bigger than Jamaica, with far more, population, which means more people in a country, more they can contribute per person purchasing power to the GDP. Remember that. So that's what we're looking at here. So even though, this figure is less because it's a bigger country in the UK, bigger island rather, they have far more bigger population as opposed to the 3 million in Jamaica. So therefore, this figure comes down. Then again, you're looking at, Canada, mad numbers in terms of millions of population in America, which is this, mad numbers in terms of population. So when you look at the ratio across all these four countries, this is way too high for the size of Jamaica and the population of Jamaica is what I'm saying, when compared to the amount of salary that each of these prime ministers and presidents are taking. And of course, as I say, that's the per capita in terms of what each person contributes regarding the population. So whatever the population is, whatever when you divide it, when you multiply this number by the population, you get the total GDP, or the reverse. Same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. Okay, so you can see that the amount of person contributing to the 3 million Jamaican population, 12,994, purchasing power per person, per capita, whatever, can cut it in regards to these. Okay, now if you look at in terms of their salary, again, that's when you realize. So you can see the representation. So I hope I've explained it in a way that this makes sense. So this color code represents the various different countries. And then this way now tells you for each country what the ratio is, what the GDP per capita is, not PC as in personal computer, per capita is, and salary for each of the different prime ministers and presidents for each of the countries for their respective countries. Okay, so we jump into that chart here, because we're going to try and break it down a little bit more easier for them. They kind of go wild. A long time when I use spreadsheet, so when we get the chance to do this, we just get wild with it. So now we jump over here and think, oh my God, here we go. You remember I did so early in the video, we're going to go in a situation where, we're going to tell you what trillions and billions look like. And we use, we round the numbers up, but we round them up. But because this, for instance, for each of these numbers, that's not the exact breakdown. But what I did is I put the numeral amount, if you like. So you see what it looks like. So we can do a workout. So in other words, if you go back over here, let's take what is one now? Purple is US, because where always I use purple, innit? We use purple for some reason. We use purple. Yeah, man. US purple. So we try to stick with the same color. So 28, remember this is 28 trillion, But what we do is, if we come over here, so, and we look at the USA, we say 28.7 trillion. Now, even though we put 28.7 trillion, when I come over here, whoops, we just round it up and say 28 trillion. You understand me? So what I did is I created a different category so I can pull from it. And that's what I did. So that's the numbers here. So basically, as you can see from this chart, Jamaica, Biden, I think that's Rishi Sunak, Canada and Rishi Sunak, or vice versa. So this is a better representation for show you how, even though America's, GDP is 28 trillion compared to Jamaica's GDP of 37.2 billion, and Canada's 2.4 trillion, and the UK's just over 4 trillion. It just goes to show you that given the ratio here, this doesn't come up, because when you compare this number to the GDP number, this don't even move off of the ground. You understand me? But this is why when I went over here and I used the per capita amount, we had a better representation for ratio. But the reason why I did this chart is just to show you that given the GDP of these countries, them salary is modest, some of them, in comparison to Jamaica, who seems to be greedy. I hope that wasn't confusing. Last one on the pie chart. I mean, you're going to say, well, boy, you're not done yet. No, I'm going to wrap up now. So here we are again in a pie chart. I make sure I drag out Jamaica and isolate Jamaica and put them out there. Because the whole of this heat and fire where we are bring upon Jamaica, Jamaica we are bring it upon. So, and again, salary in the USA. So as you can see, these are the pie 100%. Okay. And as you can see, Andrew Holness is on 58,679 US dollars. Again, let me just remind you, Andrew Holness, 58,679 US dollars is equivalent to 9,169,617. Okay, which him say him retain, and him not depend this which him the schedule for depend. So him say, so we have to go with this. So going with that figure, jump over to the pie. Him depend 58,679, which are the 9.1 million or whatever him depend, which is 7% of the pie. Okay, Now over here, so we have our winner red, Dominica Republic. And when we decide to do this, is all the Caribbean islands, but then in US dollar. Because remember, as I said, the denomination for comparison when it comes to finance and world trade and anything to do with the economy, they use US dollars as a standard. Okay, so here we are, Dominica Republic. There, and I put under here, they're 294.5 billion GDP. But then, the prime minister's salary in Dominica is 120,000. So you may have 15% of the pie and so on and so forth. So you can see some of them like 116,000, just over 14% of the pie. So in other words, the person with the biggest piece of the pie right now, Dominica. The second person with the second biggest piece of the pie, Barbados, which is them over here. So they're on 5.4 billion. So even though they're not pushing out as much as Jamaica, which is on 37.2 billion GDP, that's the overall GDP now we're talking about, not the per capita GDP, the overall GDP. Yeah, with the country I push out the total amount. So for Barbados, Sandra Mason, who is the president, Mia Motley, who is the prime minister. You can see them respectively there. So I kind of dim it. These are the same country, these are the same country, these are the same country, and these are the same country. But when we do one slightly more, because a lot of these countries have prime minister and then them have president or them have a governor general. And then for Jamaica, I didn't put no governor general. We are focused on the prime minister. So, but in terms of Grenada, they don't have a president. They just have a prime minister and a governor general. We have a prime minister and a governor general too in Jamaica, but for some reason we just decided not to put the governor general. So you can see the second biggest piece of the pie goes to the bright yellow, Barbados, which is Sandra Mason, who's the president. Okay, and the third biggest piece of the pie goes to Ian Motley, which is the slightly smaller from Barbados as well. And so on and so forth. So green, that's Bahamas, which is them. Puerto Rico, this is not, I know I use US for purple, but because these are all Caribbean islands, just to give the chart some variety in terms of color and contrast, I put that. So for purple, in this case, or should I say in this pie chart, it's Puerto Rico, and as you can see, they're on 132 billion. Remember, Puerto Rico is part of US territory. So there, the prime minister there, or the governor there rather, because in Puerto Rico, that's another thing. They don't have a prime minister or a president, they have a governor, because obviously their territory is part of the United States. So the president is the head of basically Puerto Rico, and then they just have a governor. Okay? So the governor there, Pedro, he's getting 70,000 US dollars a year. And the GDP of Puerto Rico is 132 billion though. You understand me? In terms of total GDP. And then you have Grenada down there, 2.3 billion. And then they have a governor general. And then that's Grenada here. So Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Bahamas, Puerto Rico, Grenada, and back to Jamaica. Now, I didn't include any other island. I just want to focus on these islands. Now, what I want to do quickly is show you something. Now, bear in mind this figure. Right now, you say, boy, but Jamaica is on par with Grenada and even the one I don't know, which is lower. So, Dominican Republic, which are the lighter one, which is 43 point whatever billion they're getting, which is this person here. So I'm thinking, okay, Christine, who is the president, is getting this amount of money, and this person is Keith Rowley. He's getting that amount, 85. So Christine and Keith respectively. Now I'm going to change this figure here, because remember I said to you I was going to do some 7% of the pie Jamaica have right now. But this is on the premise that Andrew Holness is on this 9.1 million amount. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is change these numbers, I'm only going to focus on this because the chart is picking the money from the US. Because remember, as I said, the US is what you have to use as a standard. So I've already worked out the equivalent as in for whatever. So if I go down here where this is, I'm going to say, remember in 2022, I'm supposed to get this. So let me copy this amount, scroll back up, yeah, and which part 100 there, let's paste that amount in there instead. So remember it was 7%, you know, pam. So that's that, 142,000, yeah. So this figure is not going to change. I just manually looked up and converted these numbers. Otherwise, I'd have to write a macro to do it, and it's just one long drawn out thing. So I'm not going to do that. So jump back over to the pie chart. You see now it changed to 16%. You see, if him did just take the 22 alone pay increase out of all the Caribbean island, when them say boy GDP blah blah blah. Remember, I know GDP is where it is now in 2024. Yeah, that's not the GDP of 2021, 2022, or 2023. The GDP which I reflected here is the current GDP of Jamaica, as far as I understand it. So for 2024. So if you just take it from 2021 to 2022, if you just take the 2022 salary, he would have jump up and take the biggest piece of the pie. Even over countries like, you know what I mean, like Trinidad would do 43.6 billion, and countries like Dominican Republic would do 294.5 billion, and of course countries like Puerto Rico that's doing 132 billion. Okay, just if him take the pay increase alone, him would have greedy and nyam off most of the cake. You can see it already. Okay, he would have nyam off piece of the cake, and that's if him jump from 2021 to 2022 salary. So from 7% to 16%. So that's more than double already, you know. The pie him take it up. Yeah, cause 2714, right? And this are 16. So over twice the amount of him did have before man nyam off already, you know. So okay, let's jump back over here again and say okay, the 182,000. Yeah, I could have just copied that figure. Yeah, so which is 2024. But we're not ready for that yet. So that's 2020. Remember, that's the figure is on. It remain on this figure, which is the 9.1 million in Jamaican dollars. Okay, so now we just plug in this and him jump from 7% to 16%. Nyam off the pie. So now we're going to jump to, because we're going to assume that he took this. What if he had taken this and then in 23 he taken this? So let's take the 2023 one now. Boom. So let's go back up again. Radam. So which part him there? See him there? Radam. Bump him up again. Remember, you know? It was 16. You see the ratio jump, the ratio, because anything in this bits is going to change, but these white numbers won't. So jump back over to the pie. Boom figure. The man jump up by an extra 1%. So you see my great greedy man nyam off more of the pie. All them things I get distorted. Me have to kind of fix them, you know what I mean? Let me just quickly fix them back and neat them back up, and yeah, me can left that there. So, you know, bring this one down here like that. Yeah, the rest of them we can, you know, bring this in a little bit more, you know, who cares, whatever, you know. Oops, we never mean to do that. Undo that. That mean for move. Come on, brother, don't give me no hassle, you know. Me live, you know, live, me can't afford no hiccups. Okay, so that's that. So you can see it jump to 161, you know what I'm saying? In terms of his the amount, if they jump him salary to this, which is 17% of the pie. So we say, okay, what if him they jump now and decides I'm gonna take the final scheduled income, which is April 2024, which are the first of April, last month gone, first, remember when the first May. So because we're in the first of May right now, yeah, we're going to grab this and say, what if him did not follow the rules and decide to take this as of last month? So, at the end of the month, gone last month, if him did take it, I did say more than I get. So, let's just jump into that now and change Andrew Holness. Let's change that now, the same 182. I suppose I could have just copied that figure under it, whatever. So, we do that. If you see it, everything has to change again. So, Jump back over to the pie chart. Budoof. You see the man and yam off the cake, brother, and everybody else get less and less. So now 90. So this is all the Caribbean islands that I've listed here. Do you understand me? And you can see 19% of the cake, the man and yam, if you take this area for such a tiny island. Yeah. And this is 2024. If you are taking this, he would have, of all these countries, the other countries, there are some smaller, tinier islands, you know. But for them, GDP and whatever is so negligible that it's not even worth put on the list. And it's no disrespect to them, but we have to stick with the sort of larger islands, if you like, if that makes sense. Okay? So we can do a fair comparison, because even Grenada that's down here, it's not a fair comparison, because Grenada is so tiny, much tinier than Jamaica, and them just barely manage 2.3 billion GDP, total GDP for them like an island of Grenada. But we put them on there because Grenada popular, Puerto Rico popular, Bahamas, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Dominican Republic popular. You know what I mean? As long as Jamaica. So we use them, the sort of the famous islands, them, if you like. There's others too, I'm not saying, but you get what I'm saying. So with that said, we're looking at here, and you can tell that even these are all 2024 GDPs, you know, they're not, this is current 2024 GDP. So if you look at a country like Puerto Rico, who is 132 billion in terms of GDP for Puerto Rico, which is them over here, so you can see where my man's salary, which dwarf his amount, you understand me, more than double, because double this is what, 140, would it be 140,000? Him the 182,000. If him did, brother, me telling you, said, you see this government, this is what I say, yeah. Let me give me a minute. Me need to recollect myself, because if Jamaica vote in this government, given what I've just shown you, I don't know. Now, I am no expert economist. You know, I didn't go and do a master's or a degree or PhD in economics. But I must say, even me just getting the figures from established, reputable, verifiable sources, which I've mentioned earlier in the video, go back and listen. At the same time, I'm saying, if I'm just a person who, my background is computing and banking, not particularly economics and finance in that respect. But if I can plug some figures, and I can then use those figures and illustrate this, how the hell are people like the finance minister, they just massage figures, and massage figures don't mean they're cheating. What I mean is they're not lying to you, but they're not giving you the whole truth. That's like me, you know, if I break a piece of pie in two and put half in my bag and have the other half in my hand, and you say, beg your piece of the pie, and you say, well, I only got this in my hand, so let me break the bit that I have in my hand and give you. That's not a lie. I did say to you, I only have this in my hand, and therefore the little piece I have in my hand, I'm willing to share that with you and break that in half. So it sounds fair. But what you don't know is you're actually getting half of a half, which is a quarter, because the other half of the pie, it's in my bag. I didn't tell you it was in my bag. I just omitted the fact that it was in my bag. All I did was say to you, I only have this pie in my hand, and this is all I have in my hand. So therefore, I'm willing to share this pie I have in my hand and go 50-50 with you and break it in half. Now, you who are ignorant to the fact that I have another half of the same pie in my bag, unbeknownst to you, when me break the piece of pie in my hand in half and give you, from far as you're concerned, I didn't lie to you, because I said to you, I have this pie in my hand, and I'm willing to share this pie that I have in my hand in half, 50-50 with you. When you take your half, which is really a quarter, and you gone, you only get 25% of the pie. Me still have 75% of the pie. Because then when you gone, me then take out the other 50% of the pie that me did hide in my bag and never tell you about. Plus the other 25% of the 50% which would split with you So now me have 75%. No, that's not a fair sharing, is it? But me never lie to you and tell you nothing, but I just omit the fact that I have another half of the pie that you're not knowing about. And this is how governments work. When you see situations like this, for instance, this is how them now give you the full pie, you know. They might tell you half of the pie. If somebody over here, so who for country this? Dominica. If this person here, Trinidad, sorry, not Dominica, Trinidad. If this person here that's on £85,600, which is 9%, if this person say, listen, me willing to share half of my, my pie with you, which is 9%, which means they're going to give me 4.5%. But if me take 4.5% of the pie and hide it, yeah? So it's only 4.5% of the pie that you can see. And then you split that 4.5% with you. Do you understand me? What that means is you only get 2.25. So therefore, the other half of my pie, you don't see it. And this is why I say that, governments really, you have to watch them closely and listen to what they say. Because sometimes it's not what they say, it's what they don't say. But I think that's all I wanted to say for this. So, I'm just going to end the video here and hopefully you enjoyed the video.